My husband grabbed my arm at my grandmother's 88th birthday party. "We need to leave, now." I laughed until he locked the car doors. "That's not your grandmother in there," he whispered. "I'm calling the police." 5 minutes later, I discovered my family had been lying to me for 2 years. I'm Elena. I hadn't seen my grandmother in 4 years, not since I moved to Vancouver for work. Every time I called home, my mother would say she was too sick to talk. But when they invited me to her 88th birthday, I thought things were finally changing. The party felt wrong from the start. My grandmother, who taught me everything about art, didn't recognize her own paintings hanging on the wall. She held a paintbrush like she'd never seen one before. Her voice sounded different, hoarse, unfamiliar. That's when my husband Marcus, an audio engineer, leaned over and whispered those words that changed everything. You see, Marcus has this ability to analyze voices, frequencies, patterns, vocal signatures. It's his job, and he was absolutely certain the woman sitting in that wheelchair wasn't the grandmother who used to sing me lullabies. "Her vocal resonance is completely wrong," he said as we sat in the locked car, my heart hammering against my ribs. "Elena, I've heard your grandmother's voice in dozens of your videos. That person in there, different larynx, different breathing patterns, that's not her." I wanted to tell him he was crazy. I wanted to march back inside and pretend everything was normal. Instead, I pulled out my phone with shaking fingers and dialed 911, because if Marcus was right about the voice, where was my real grandmother? Before we continue, if you're already questioning your own family relationships after hearing this, hit that like button and subscribe, because what I discovered about my family will make you want to check on your own loved ones. Trust me, you don't want the algorithm to hide the ending of this story. To understand how we got here, I need to tell you about the woman who shaped my entire world, and why what they did to her was far worse than just impersonation. My grandmother wasn't just family to me. She was my anchor. The one person who saw me, really saw me, when everyone else seemed to look right through me. Growing up, I was the forgotten daughter, while my sister Isabella got tearful goodbyes when she left for college, Mom literally begging her to stay, offering to pay for everything. I got a suitcase on my 18th birthday and a pat on the shoulder. Time to grow up, Elena. You're an adult now. I don't want to sound bitter about it, I really don't, but there's something about being ushered out the door like a polite house guest, while your sister gets treated like precious cargo. That kind of sticks with you. The only person who ever made me feel like I mattered was grandmother. In her art studio, surrounded by canvases and the smell of lavender, she always wore this lavender perfume. I felt home. She'd hum these old songs while painting watercolours, her gentle hands guiding my clumsy fingers as I learned to hold a brush properly. "Art never lies, my dear," she used to say, watching me struggle with a particularly difficult technique. "People do, but art reveals truth." Grandmother was different. While my parents funded Isabella's college life, grandmother quietly sent me checks with notes for art supplies or "proud of you, darling." She never made it a big deal, just took care of me when no one else would. When I moved to Vancouver 4 years ago for a gallery position, I thought it was temporary, a stepping stone. But distance has a way of making things clearer, doesn't it? The phone calls became shorter. The excuses became longer. "She's not feeling well today, Elena. Maybe next month would be better. You know how she gets tired, but you say that every year, Mum. I just want to hear her voice." The worst part? I started believing maybe it was my fault. Maybe I'd been gone too long. Maybe she'd forgotten about me the way everyone else seemed to. Then, about 6 months ago, something changed. Grandmother had been secretly planning something, a surprise art exhibition, my first solo show. She'd already reserved gallery space, contacted collectors. even prepared an invitation list. I found out through a mutual friend who worked at the gallery. I called home immediately, so excited I could barely speak. But Mum's voice went cold. "Oh, that! We had to cancel it. She's not well enough for that kind of stress anymore." The exhibition that was supposed to launch my career gone, just like that. I should have known something was wrong then. Grandmother would never cancel something like that without talking to me first. Art was our language. It was how we connected across all those miles and all that family dysfunction. So when Mum called last month and said, "If you really want to see her, come for her birthday," I booked the flight that same night. I thought maybe this was my chance to reconnect, and maybe, just maybe, salvage that exhibition she'd planned. I had no idea I was walking into a lie that had been carefully constructed for 2 years. The party was off. That's the only way I can describe it. Like someone had taken a normal family gathering and shifted everything just slightly out of focus. Most of the guests were strangers to me, people I'd never met or hadn't seen in years, all making polite conversation about the weather and how wonderful Grandmother looked. The whole thing felt rehearsed, like everyone was reading from the same script. When they finally brought her out, I felt my breath catch. She looked smaller somehow, fragile, wearing sunglasses indoors, which struck me as odd, but Mom quickly explained she'd become sensitive to light. Her voice, when she spoke at all, was barely a whisper, hoarse and strained. "She doesn't talk much anymore," Mom said, hovering protectively. "The medication makes her tired." I approached carefully, kneeling beside her wheelchair. "Hi, Grandma, it's me, Elena." She looked at me, or at least turned her head in my direction, but there was no recognition, no spark, nothing. "She's exhausted," Mom interjected quickly. "Don't overwhelm her with questions about the past." But I couldn't help myself. I gestured toward one of her paintings hanging on the wall, a watercolour of peonies she'd painted when I was 12. "Do you remember teaching me the wet-on-wet technique with this one?" Blank stare. I tried again. "Your favourite artist was always Monet. Remember how you used to say his water lilies made you feel like you were floating?" Nothing. Marcus had been watching from across the room, and I saw him pull out his phone. "I'm recording this," he whispered when I rejoined him by the refreshment table. "The vocal patterns are completely off. Elena, I know your grandmother's voice better than my own mother's. 4 years of Christmas calls, birthday messages. This isn't her." I looked back at the woman in the wheelchair. Wrong-handed paintbrush grip, missing lavender scent. No reaction to our shared art memories. Marcus showed me his phone, 2 completely different voice patterns. "Different vocal tract, different breathing, different everything," he said. I wanted to argue with him. I wanted to tell him he was being paranoid that grief and illness could change a person's voice. But then I looked around the room again, really looked. The guests weren't mingling naturally. My mother kept redirecting any conversation that got too specific about memories or the past. Isabella hovered near the wheelchair, making sure no one got too close for too long. And the art! God, the art! Half of Grandmother's collection was missing from the walls. When I asked about it, Dad mumbled something about donations and tax write-offs, but he couldn't look me in the eye. "Where are the receipts?" I asked. "For the donations?" "Oh, your mother handles all that paperwork," he said, then quickly excused himself to check on the grill. Marcus touched my arm gently. "Elena, when was the last time you actually saw your grandmother? Not on a video call that could be controlled, not through other people's updates. When did you last see her in person?" The answer hit me like a physical blow. 4 years. It had been 4 years since I'd seen her face to face. 4 years of excuses. 4 years of she's not feeling well and maybe next time and you know how she gets. 4 years of them controlling every interaction, every conversation, every connection I tried to make with the woman who had been more of a mother to me than my own mother ever was. That's when Marcus showed me proof that would force me to make the hardest decision of my life, because what we discovered next wasn't just about a missing grandmother. It was about money, lies, and a family willing to do anything to keep their secret buried. "Look at these waveforms," Marcus said, pulling me into the hallway where we couldn't be overheard. His phone screen showed two completely different patterns, jagged lines that looked like mountain ranges side by side. "This isn't even close. Different person entirely." My hands were shaking as I stared at the screen. "But what if you're wrong? What if I'm just being paranoid? If I act on this and you're wrong, I'll destroy this family forever." Marcus looked at me with those steady brown eyes that had gotten me through 4 years of long-distance relationship struggles. "Elena, what if I'm right? What if she's been gone this whole time?" The question hung between us like a blade. I couldn't breathe properly. My chest felt tight, like someone was squeezing my ribs. I need to check something." I slipped away from the party, claiming I needed to use the bathroom. Instead, I went upstairs to grandmother's art studio, the room that had been my sanctuary growing up, where she'd taught me everything I knew about colour and light and seeing the world through an artist's eyes. The door was locked. That stopped me cold. In all my years visiting this house, that door had never been locked. Grandmother always said art should be accessible, that creativity couldn't be caged. I found the spare key she used to keep hidden behind the loose baseboard, a secret she'd shared with me when I was 10. My hands were trembling so badly I could barely fit it in the lock. The room was empty, not just tidy, empty. The easels were bare. The art supply cabinet stood open, showing nothing but dust outlines where bottles and tubes used to be. Even her personal paintings, the ones she'd never sell, were gone. Later, I learned they'd sold over $400,000 worth of her art in just 6 months. Pieces she'd never sell, pieces with my childhood fingerprints in the paint, gone to strangers for cash. But in the corner, behind what used to be her favourite chair, I found something that made my heart stop. A small sketch tucked into a crack in the floorboard, recent paper not yellowed with age. And in the corner, in grandmother's distinctive handwriting, March 15th, E. If you're reading this, they won't let me call you anymore. March, 3 months ago. I turned the sketch over with shaking fingers. More writing. The exhibition was real. Gallery 42 on Granville. Mrs. Patterson has the key. Don't let them erase me. My grandmother's bank statements were in the desk drawer, statements that showed activity until last month, art sales, gallery rental payments, insurance claims on donated artwork that I now realised had never been donated at all. They'd been selling her collection piece by piece while telling everyone she'd given it all away. I sat on the floor of that empty studio, holding that sketch, and felt something break inside me. Not just my heart, though that was definitely shattered, but something deeper. The last thread of trust I had in my own family. Marcus found me there 20 minutes later. I showed him the sketch, the bank statements, the empty room that used to pulse with creative energy. "This is evidence," he said quietly. "Elena, this is proof that something is very, very wrong. Someone was impersonating my grandmother, and my family was in on it. Stop this video right now, I'm serious. If your spouse told you that your grandmother, the person who raised you, was actually a stranger in disguise, what would you do? Call the police immediately or try to handle it within the family? Comment below, because I need to know I wasn't crazy for what I did next." "I have to know," I whispered, clutching that sketch like a lifeline. "I have to know where she is." Marcus helped me to my feet. "Then we call the police." We walked downstairs together, past the fake cheerfulness and forced smiles. past my mother's watchful eyes and Isabella's nervous hovering, past the woman in the wheelchair who was wearing my grandmother's face but wasn't her, could never be her. When I saw what was written on the back of that sketch, I knew I had no choice. I walked outside, took a deep breath, and dialed 911. Because what the police discovered wasn't just identity theft. It was a cover-up that had been carefully planned for over 2 years. The police arrived faster than I expected. 2 officers in plain clothes who spoke in calm, measured tones that somehow made everything feel more real and more terrifying at the same time. I showed them the sketch first, the bank statements. Marcus played his voice analysis recordings. I felt like I was presenting evidence in a trial where my own sanity was on the stand. "We'd like to speak with the elderly woman inside," the older officer said, "and we'll need to see some identification." I watched from the car as they approached the party. The fake cheerfulness died immediately. I could see my mother's face change, that tight smile she wore when she was about to lie to protect herself. The woman in the wheelchair, I couldn't think of her as my grandmother anymore, looked up at the officers with what I now recognized as panic, not confusion. They spoke for maybe 10 minutes. Then one of the officers came back to us. "Ma'am, we're going to need you to come down to the station. There are some things we need to discuss." "Is it her?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "Is it my grandmother?" The officer's expression was carefully neutral. "We're still confirming some details, but no, it's not." The world tilted sideways. 3 hours later, sitting in a sterile police station conference room, I learned the truth. The woman's name was Mrs. Chen. She was a family friend, a retired actress who'd done community theatre for years. She'd been hired to play my grandmother for family events when my grandmother became too ill to participate. "She told us it was temporary," Mrs. Chen said, wringing her hands. "Just until Eleanor could adjust to the idea of her grandmother's decline. They said you were too busy with your career to visit anyway, that this would be easier for everyone." "How long?" I asked. "How long have you been doing this?" Mrs. Chen looked at the floor. 2 years, maybe a little more. 2 years. 2 years of birthday parties and holiday celebrations, with a stranger wearing my grandmother's clothes, sitting in my grandmother's chair, receiving my grandmother's gifts. "Where is she?" I asked. "Where is my real grandmother?" The silence in that room was deafening. Finally, the officer spoke. "Ma'am, Mrs. Ellis passed away 2 years ago. The family failed to report the death to authorities." I think I stopped breathing. The words hit me like physical blows, each one landing somewhere vital. "Natural causes," the officer continued. "According to the family's statement, she died peacefully in her sleep. But there was no death certificate filed, no funeral arrangements made through official channels. My grandmother had been dead for 2 years. 2 years of me sending birthday cards to a corpse. 2 years of wondering why she never called me back, why she seemed different on the rare video calls they allowed. 2 years of guilt, thinking I'd somehow failed her by moving away. She'd been gone the whole time. "There's more," the officer said gently. "We found her laptop. There are draft emails, attempts to contact you that were never sent." They showed me the screen. Dozens of drafted messages, all addressed to me. The timestamps showed they'd been written in the weeks before her death. "Elena, darling, I've been trying to call you, but they say you're too busy. I don't understand why I can't reach you directly anymore. Something isn't right. They won't let me use the phone without supervision." The final draft, dated 3 days before her death. "They won't let me talk to you. If something happens to me, know that I love you. The paintings in the studio are yours. All of it is yours. Don't let them erase me. Here's where I need your help deciding if I'm a hero or a villain. They stole 2 years of goodbye from me, but they're still my family. Would you destroy your entire family for the truth? or live with the lie to keep the peace. Comment truth or peace. The results might surprise you. I couldn't speak, couldn't think. The betrayal was so complete, so calculated that my brain couldn't process it. You know what the cruelest part was? They didn't just steal my inheritance, they stole my grief. For 2 years, I mourned a woman who was already gone while they counted money that was never theirs. The art collection, the officer explained, was valued at approximately $2.3 million. According to her will, everything was left to you. By keeping her death secret and maintaining the illusion that she was still alive, they could continue living in the house, selling pieces from the collection, managing her accounts. My mother's voice echoed in my memory. You abandoned this family when you moved away. But the most devastating revelation was still coming. The legal proceedings moved faster than I expected. Within a week, my entire family was facing charges: estate fraud, identity theft, conspiracy to defraud, failure to report a death. Mrs. Chen cooperated fully with the investigation. In exchange for her testimony, she received 6 months of community service and probation. During her deposition, she told me things about my grandmother's final months that broke my heart all over again. She talked about you constantly, Mrs. Chen said, tears in her eyes. She was so proud of your gallery work in Vancouver. She kept newspaper clippings of every exhibition you were involved with, even the small ones. She had this whole scrapbook, a scrapbook I'd never seen, more evidence of a relationship that had been stolen from me. The lawyer handling my grandmother's estate was a kind woman named Patricia Wells. She sat across from me in her office, surrounded by boxes of documents I was still trying to process. Your grandmother left very specific instructions, she said, sliding a folder across the desk. She wanted you to have everything, including her unfinished plans for your art career. Inside the folder were detailed exhibition plans, contact lists for gallery owners and art collectors, even a marketing strategy for my debut as a professional artist. She'd been working on launching my career right up until her death. I don't want their money, I said, staring at the inheritance papers. I just wanted more time with her. Patricia's expression was gentle but firm. But now you can do exactly what she dreamed of, showcase your art the way she planned. That's what she would have wanted. Justice was swift. Probation, fines, and they lost everything. The family home, Isabella's college fund, even their marriage, all gone to pay for their lies. I requested a permanent restraining order, not because I was afraid of them physically, but because I needed space to heal without their attempts at justification or reconciliation. The hardest part wasn't the legal proceedings or even the money. It was the complete destruction of every family memory I'd ever held dear. How do you mourn someone when you discover that half the people who were supposed to love them had been profiting from their death? Marcus stood by me through all of it. He took leave from his job to help me sort through my grandmother's belongings, to plan the memorial service I should have been able to attend 2 years earlier, to hold me when the grief hit me in waves so powerful I couldn't stand. You didn't betray her memory, he said one night when I was drowning in guilt and second-guessing. You honoured it. You made sure the truth came out. 3 months after the trial, I made a decision that surprised everyone, including myself. I decided to honour my grandmother's exhibition plans. Using the inheritance money felt wrong at first, like I was profiting from tragedy. But then I found her final painting hidden in a storage unit I didn't even know she'd rented. It was a portrait of me, painted from memory, with a note attached. For Eleanor's first exhibition, may your art always tell the truth. 6 months later, as I stood in the gallery that grandmother had dreamed of, I realised something profound had shifted inside me. The gallery opening was everything my grandmother had envisioned and more. Over 200 people came, art collectors, critics, fellow artists, and strangers who had heard our story and wanted to show support. The walls displayed both our work side by side, her watercolours next to my oil paintings, her delicate florals beside my bold abstracts, 2 generations of artistic vision in conversation. This exhibition, it's like she's still here, creating with you, a visitor said to me that night, and I felt something inside my chest loosen for the first time in months. Marcus found me later standing in front of the centrepiece, my grandmother's final portrait of me, the one with her note about truth-telling. "How are you feeling?" he asked. "Like she's proud of me," I said, and meant it. Grandmother was right. Art never lies, and family shouldn't either. The gallery became more than just an exhibition space. It became a memorial, a place where people could come to talk about difficult truths, about family secrets that had been buried too long. The success surprised everyone. We sold enough pieces on opening night to establish a scholarship fund in my grandmother's name. The waiting list for future exhibitions stretched months ahead. But the real victory wasn't financial or professional. It was personal. I sleep better now. The nightmares about that birthday party have faded, replaced by dreams where my grandmother and I paint together in her lavender-scented studio. I've built a new family, Marcus, the artists in our collective, the community that's grown around the gallery, people who choose truth over comfort, who understand that love sometimes means making difficult decisions. Do I regret calling the police that day? Never. Not for a single moment. Do I miss my biological family? Sometimes. I miss the version of them I thought I knew, the people I believed they were before I learned what they were capable of. But I don't miss the lies, the manipulation, the feeling of being expendable. My grandmother used to say that art reveals truth. What I learned is that sometimes revealing truth is the most loving thing you can do, even when it destroys everything you thought you knew. The gallery is thriving. We've expanded to include a second location, and I'm mentoring young artists the way my grandmother mentored me. Every day I walk past her portrait and remember her final message. Trust your instincts, follow your art. I did both, and in the end, that's what saved me. Was Elena right to choose truth over family peace? What would you have done in my situation? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If this story moved you, please like and subscribe. Your support helps me share more stories about courage, truth, and the complicated nature of family love. Sometimes the most healing thing is knowing you're not alone in your struggles. Next week's story will make this family deception look simple. Imagine discovering your husband has been living a complete double life for 15 years. Different name, different job, even different wife and kids. The woman who exposed him used a single receipt to unravel 15 years of lies. Subscribe and hit that bell because this one will destroy your faith in marriage. And if you have your own family truth stories, share them in the comments. Sometimes speaking our secrets out loud is the first step toward healing. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being part of this journey. And remember, your truth matters, even when it's difficult to tell. Because sometimes the people we love the most are the ones hiding the biggest lies.